Let me tell you a true story about a man called Peter. Peter retired after living for 25 years in the same town, and he moved to a place where he knew absolutely no one. He didn't have an obvious front line, though there were things he could do: preaching, teaching, counselling. So he prayed to God and asked him, "What do you want me to do?" And God brought Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 7 to mind. "Seek the peace and prosperity of the city to which I have carried you into exile." And Peter wondered, how can I bless the town you've brought me to? So he prayed again. And the Lord told him to pick up the litter. It reminded Peter of Jesus washing the disciples' feet in the upper room, cleaning off the dirt. So he went to the local council and asked if he could borrow a litter picking claw, and they gave him one on permanent loan. And so it was that on the days that he goes on his walk to and through and back from the nature reserve that's close to his home, he prays and he praises God for the world that he's made, and he picks up the litter that mars it. And he says hello to people. And pretty soon people started to say hello back, and little conversations began. "Why are you doing that?" "Well," he said, "because God loved the world he created." "And are you being paid?" Well, of course, he wasn't being paid. "Oh, that's a thankless task. You'll get to heaven for that." Well, he said, "I do hope to get to heaven, but not because I pick up the litter, but because Jesus gave his life for me." And some people have come to evangelistic meetings at the church. And at Easter, he says hello to the people he normally says hello to. And he offers them a gift, a little wooden cross, made, he tells them, from olive wood that comes from Israel, where Jesus lived. Something to remind us that at Easter, Jesus died and rose again. So as he walks, Peter the litter picker picks up the litter. And even drivers he doesn't even know, toot their horns and wave at him in respect and in gratitude. And then on an ordinary day, like any other ordinary day, a man in a white van screeches up to him, rolls down the window and leans out and says, "Thanks very much." I wonder what strikes you about that story. In what ways has Peter been fruitful? So, taking Peter the litter picker as our example, well, Peter modelled godly character, being obedient to God, being joyful and faithful in the task. So we ask ourselves, how might I exhibit the fruit of the Spirit? Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness and self-control on my front line. On my front line with that hugely irritating, noisy neighbour, that galactically incompetent boss, or that vein-burstingly irritating child. Well, Peter also did good work. He cleaned up the park. Making good work to the glory of God, that's also being fruitful. And we all have tasks to do, whether we're paid for doing them or we aren't paid for doing them. Dishes to wash, shirts to iron, shelves to stack, deals to do, people to serve, streets to make cleaner, and they're all important to God. What difference might it make if we committed our daily tasks to Him, asked Him for help, consciously did them for His glory? Peter ministered grace and love, reaching out to strangers to bless them. That's fruit. And there are lots of ways to express grace and love. It could be forgiving someone who insulted you, or giving someone a wise piece of advice, looking out for a colleague, caring about the checkout person, just acting with selfless love. And when you contribute to moulding culture for the better, that's being fruitful. Changing the way things are done in your family or in your sports team or in your office so that they better reflect God's ways, His kingdom culture, just as Peter changed the culture of the walking community in the park and lifted the spirits of at least one white van man. And there's being a mouthpiece of truth and justice, courageously sticking up for someone with the local council or at work or in the classroom. Justice is something God wants done. And yes, being a messenger of the gospel. Peter told others about why he does what he does, told people about his own relationship with Jesus, and invited them to find out more. So we too, we look out for opportunities to communicate the reason for the hope that we have in Jesus, or to bring a biblical perspective to the conversation, or to just tell others the difference Jesus has made, is making in our ordinary life. And all these M's, well, they work together. Godly character creates better soil for godly testimony. Working hard to make other people's lives better confirms that the gospel is about joy in this life as well as joy in the next. Serving others selflessly makes the message of a selfless servant king much more compelling. Taking a risk to stand up against injustice makes the claim that God cares about injustice much more persuasive. Our lives in Christ reinforce our words about Christ, and our words help others to see that it is Jesus who has transformed our lives, and it is Jesus who can transform theirs.